I have a question for you guys. So I was thinking, talking about AI tools and all that, the stuff we use is very nice, but I also maybe want to get some more value out of how do you guys use AI today in your daily work and the workflows? It can be tools or it can just be special prompts that you guys are using right now, some thoughts. But I don't just want to keep talking about, okay, this is the tool I use, this is the tool I use. I also wanted to talk about specific use cases that we use it in, and maybe we can get some insights from each other that way.
Yeah. Who wants to go first? Should I go first? You want to go first, Sabir?
Go ahead. Go ahead.
Okay. So there are a few different ways in which I use AI. I think for me, it's mainly like a way to enable me doing work that I'm not able to do yet. So I use it to teach myself, for example, to do stuff. For example, when I started building NA10 workflows, I had no idea how NA10 worked. So in that use case, I had always either ChatGPT or Gemini opened on the side. And what I would do is I would ask obviously questions and you know things and challenges that I was facing in real time. And then this thing evolved in a more advanced sort of way, because I then found out, for example, that you can upload the JSON file from NA10 from the workflow into the chat, and the chat is going to be able to see the actual settings of all the nodes, and that adds a tremendous value, obviously, because of the context that you provide, and it makes it very, very specific. And so, like, I use that in that way mainly. But I also obviously have my own set of prompts that I have saved for things that I do on repeat. For example, I have prompts to create user personas, right? I have my own framework that I use all the time for that. I don't know if you guys have similar experiences in with building stuff that is like super technical and using it as an assistant. I think that's my main use case, to be honest.
I've been using it as well, but with the screenshot game. So I downloaded a new tool that is like screenshots on steroids from Mac. And I've been uploading screenshots nonstop into it. So I don't even speak to it anymore. I combine it with the whisper. I don't even type. I combine it with the whisper flow. So I speak what I want, and then I just send it a bunch of screenshots, and it figures out always. Yeah, the thing. That's been for me the biggest game changer, to be honest. So, like you said, like the learning curve is just steeper and steeper because I can learn way faster this way. Even things I've never done before. I can just like upload a few screenshots, ask it what it needs to do, tell it to be to follow only the reliable sources, and it just gives excellent results. Actually, my learning curve has gone up way up since I've been doing that. Actually,
What's the name of the tool?
CleanShot X.
Screenshot X.
Clean.
CleanShot X. Okay, cool.
Yeah. So it's like a one-time payment of 30 euros or something like that.
And so I'm struggling to see exactly how it works. So you just upload screenshots of like errors you get or something. For example, you say, hey, how to fix this? And it'll come talk to you back, or it'll come with like a written prompt that explains how to do it.
So for example, I downloaded, so I'm looking into backlinks. I downloaded like a tool, it's called SEO Util, but I had no idea how to work it. And there's also not a user manual or something. So I just sent a screenshot. Okay, I don't know how to use this program. It's called this way. It's called this thing. What do I need to do? And it just went and looked, and apparently there's some documentation online. And it brought me a quick tutorial. Okay, then you do this, then you do this. And at each step of the way, I add the screenshots, and then it sends it to me. It tells me what to do. I've been working, so Claude sometimes, he can edit the screenshots I make. So he has like a circle or an arrow or something. And I was like, what? This is even better if I can't directly find something. So that's also very nice. I've been using Claude a lot, way more as well the past few weeks. I saw your LinkedIn post, Sergio. I think something clicked the past few weeks, and it's gone up a few levels.
It's crazy. Yeah. It's crazy.
Way
The
less hallucination.
but the co-work app from Claude is amazing. Like I used it yesterday. I mean, it's one of those use cases that it gets suggested to you the first time you install it. And it's like, do you want me to help you clean up your downloads folder? So I was like, yeah, of course I want to, because I've got stuff there from like 6 years ago. It did it in 5 minutes. It presented me like a clean plan that I then approved. And, it renamed files. It created folders, put stuff into the folders like according to different criteria that he had established itself. So wow. So that was my moment where everything clicked, because I've had read of people trying it, but I struggled to believe that it actually was as good as people said. But when I actually saw that doing that stuff, I was like, where something is changing here, guys. Like this thing is on another level.
Yeah. I think Anthropic are doing a very good job of doing it the right way. I think they're building it the right way. They're listening to the feedback of their users. Something very nice I also discovered. So I'm dyslexic, and they have a special dyslexic font on Claude. So it answers you with the font, and I can read it twice as fast now. So it's really nice. It's called, how's it called? Open Dyslexic, the font. So it's very, I'm telling you, I'm very impressed with how the product is evolving and the use cases you can get out of it. It's very nice.
That actually reminds me, because last episode we also talked about which tools we used and whatever, and no one mentioned this one, and I haven't heard of it really. Has anybody still used Perplexity?
I do. All the time.
Yeah?
I did mention it actually last time.
Oh, did you? Oh, my bad. Okay.
I did, and it's interesting that you said that, because I've noticed also that it kind of went a little bit down in terms of popularity, at least in my feed, LinkedIn feed, let's say. But I do think that it's still like quite a valid tool, because I find it way more reliable in terms of pulling out sources from the web and giving you a curated answer to your queries than even Google is, in my experience. So it's interesting you mentioned that, because I'm curious to hear what you guys think.
For me, it's just totally not on the radar anymore. And I heard somebody discuss that they're not necessarily, maybe it's like a branding issue or something, where they're just not being able to differentiate themselves from obviously ChatGPT, but also than Cloud, for example. But honestly, that's the only reason why I kind of bring it up, because I haven't even tested it, I don't think.
Yeah,
but I have played with Google AI and all the others,
Yeah, for the advantages I see in Perplexity is the fact that, first of all, you have access to multiple models in one place, right? And so you can switch model depending on maybe the type of task that you're working on or the type of answer you want. And then that is a good thing, because with one subscription, you get basically access to all of them. And then as I said, the reliability of the answers in terms of how grounded they are, it's like less biased and less, it's a bit more safe in the way that it gives you the responses to your queries. So what I mean by that is ChatGPT, for example, is way more sycophantic. So it gives you whatever you want to hear based on your memory, based on your experience and ways that you interact with it. Gemini, less so, but it's still kind of it has a tendency to give you what you want to hear. Whereas Perplexity, I found that no matter which model you select, which makes me think they do have some sort of shell prompt, right, on top of everything that kind of steers the behavior of it. And it's always a little bit more pushing back in terms of giving you way safer answers, which sometimes you want that, right? You don't just want to hear what you need to hear. You want to hear the truth, or something that is as close to the truth as possible. So that's why I like it. But I think there is an element of branding issue there, and that is playing against them.
Yeah, I think so too. To kind of wrap up your original question, Sabir, I think I'm sort of behind, if you want to say, in the total like use of AI compared to what you guys just talked about. I'm very much still sticking to the basics. But I am getting more and more like specific tools on my radar that kind of would improve certain aspects of my job. For example, I needed to make some clips of a customer interview we did. And I initially just cut it in my own local software. It's called DaVinci. I like it because it gives me, more control, because, for example, the last episode that we did here, where we're recording on Riverside, the clips it makes, I'm not a big fan of it. It's just not quite good enough. But then I did use it. I uploaded the clips I personally made to get the subtitles, for example. And this is a very basic example. But I'm now seeing more and more tools that kind of take one specific aspect and AI-ify it to do that. For example, you have these tools now. I also had a call with somebody that built or is building a company around this that specifically works on generating you new ad creatives, for example. And then you have, like I said, another one that does it with clips, and then you have another one that does it with this, and blah, blah, blah. So those are getting more and more on my radar, where I kind of see that. But besides that, I have not really played around much with my own custom agents and whatnot. Yeah.
I think from what you're saying, I would strongly suggest you look at Claude, especially to the functionality of the Claude skills, because you can really like teach Claude to perform specific tasks in the way that you perform them, and then it stores them in the memory. You can call those things anytime at any point in any chat, and basically it executes that task very prescriptively in a very reliable way. And it can be any sort of task. It can be, a research task. It can be compiling files, accessing files on your computer, or anything, even like cropping images, all sorts of tasks. And you can do it so in a very much controlled way. Also from a branding perspective, if you work a lot with like slide decks, for example, you can create a skill that creates slide decks in your own sort of visual style, and you can teach Claude to do that, save it as a skill, and then you have it on repeat, right? And that's kind of initially I was struggling to understand what's the difference between a Claude skill and something like a custom GPT, right? Which most of us were used to in the past. And as of lately, I realized that the main difference is the fact that you can actually call those things in any chat at any moment. You don't need to rely on a custom bot and that you access only through a specific channel, let's say. You have these things available at any time, anywhere. So that is the big unlock. So I would strongly suggest you start looking at that.
Okay.
You think you can put in Python scripts?
Yeah, you can do anything, literally anything. Sky's the limit.
That could be a game changer for me, because I have some scripts I run on my computer locally. But if I can make Claude do it, it would be a game changer.
Yeah, and you can teach it to execute those things, like, in anytime you say a specific keyword, let's say you say execute, and it calls that skill, right? All those instructions are baked into the skill, which is basically a file. It's a markdown file, and the beautiful thing about it is that Claude itself can help you create that markdown file for you. So you say, hey, I want to create a skill that creates, for example, this specific Python script on the fly based on the context of those files that I'm providing you. Can you help me create a skill for that? And it will create a skill for that. It will break it down into a process, and then bake that process into a file, which is a markdown file, which you then add it to the settings, and you decide how and when to use it.
Okay.
Super powerful.
Interesting.
Yeah.
And are there any rate limits?
I think that the rate limits are the same ones that you have as part of your subscription, basically.
Talking about subscriptions, the news that ChatGPT and another one I'm currently not thinking of will start to play around with ads in their free version or their very light version. Probably starting in the US, I believe, anytime soon now. So what are our thoughts? I'll share mine first. I think it is obvious it would start to happen because it's getting more and more expensive for them to also run it. And I have a second thing that I want to touch on after this conversation regarding that. An interesting thing I picked up on. But so yeah, I think it is inevitable. And as a marketer, I actually think this is a great opportunity because when new things open up, the market usually is very late to respond, depending on which industry you work in. So I'm keeping a very close eye on when it launches in Europe, which is our target audience is still here, so I can exploit it because I'm not in the space. But when TikTok Shop opened, people were incredibly taking advantage of that. LinkedIn ads to a degree, still that Reddit ads when it got properly, useful. You see that just the cost of acquisition and the CPMs and the cost per clicks of those are usually extremely cheap compared to the legacy platforms, let's say. So yeah, those are my thoughts. I think it was inevitable. I'm not sure what the public is going to react. I think they'll get used to it very quick. And as a marketer, I'm very happy.
Yeah, of
I
course.
think there's a very big added value as a marketer. I think the first few months of a new platform launching ads is like the gold rush all over again. So I'm also very excited to have ads in Europe. Very excited, also not very excited, depending on which tier they're gonna launch the ads. Because if I'm always gonna have ads, I'm gonna cancel my subscription. But it's great as a marketer.
Yeah, I agree. I think I definitely share the excitement as a marketer about ads, but I've been thinking about this, and I see a lot of it's a bit of a double-edged sword, in my opinion. Because think about this. So, for example, imagine you have a prompt that cites your brand for whatever reason, and then beneath it you have an ad that talks about your brand, and there is a discrepancy between what the actual organic response says and what the ad says. How do you handle that as a brand, right? So imagine there is negative sentiment on the web, and the response actually doesn't recommend your tool. It puts it, I don't know, in a top 10 listicle, it puts it at the bottom, right? Whereas then beneath it, there is an ad that say, hey, my brand is the best you can get for this kind of use case. How do you reconcile that? I think that is going to be a big problem, because it's probably going to erode trust, both from a user perspective and on the brand itself, and also from the marketer standpoint, because you don't even know how to manage that situation. And that's just one of the things I can think of, right? So I'm keen to hear your thoughts on this, because I think it's quite risky there.
It's like Reddit ads.
Exactly my
I think
thoughts.
it's
Yeah.
exactly the same. Yeah, it's exactly the same.
Yeah.
I think that relevance is still going to be king in this one. If you have a relevant product for a relevant solution for a relevant problem, I think that it's not going to matter then if your ad seems biased or not. But it also depends on how OpenAI will use it or how they will launch their ads. I think we're going to have to wait and see for that one. But I think it's exactly the same use case as Reddit ads.
Yeah, it's all very unclear at the moment. I think in terms of also the kind of configuration you have in the backend to set up those ads and how it will look like, etc. So those are just assumptions, but I think it's good to probably start thinking about this kind of scenarios and prepare in advance, given that we still have a bit of time until it lands in Europe. And to your point, Sabir, I think they said that they're going to launch it only for the free tier and the Go tier, which is like the lowest paid tier that they just introduced. Whereas the Plus and Pro should be ad free, hopefully. Which leads me to another point of interest, more from the user perspective, right? Because I think this is gonna create a little bit of a divide in terms of the experience you get, and I think it's a little bit unfair, in my opinion, because we're talking here about a technology that is, it was born as this sort of tool that can democratize knowledge and democratize information. But now we're getting into a place where you have basically two different experiences, and potentially one that is more biased by ads and one that is not. And basically, if you can afford paying for something, you get less biased responses, which is a bit tricky there. Yeah.
It's a good point. It kind of depends on their own setup, right? I mean, the basic version, they will have a more advanced one for sure, but a basic version could just be that I type in a certain keyword and it just shows it. Like, he asked about a jacket. Here's an ad from a jacket. Boom. So I'm not like, if that is the thing, then it's simple, right? It's old school ads from 10, 15 years ago. But of course, if they indeed try to steer the narrative towards a brand because they get paid for it, yeah, that's indeed a different conversation on the ethics of it or the fairness indeed. But then again, I mean, business is not fair, I suppose, is a bit cynical.
That's
but
true.
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess
But that's
a good
also the
point.
same thing. It's the same thing as Google Ads. I mean, if you type in a solution you're looking for in Google, you also know that the first 3 results, they're just ads and you should skip them. But for some people, they're just relevant at that time and they just click on it and their page converts it. I still think, like, I don't think people are going to buy straight from the chat interface. I think they're going to go to the website, look at a few landing pages, read up on some stuff, and then they're going to convert after that. So I also think that the organic part after it should click. It's not only just, okay, I'm going to run. It's not like TikTok Shop where people can buy straight from the TikTok. No, I think it's going to be. I hope it's going to be a step removed. Are we still going to need to convince the clients after they clicked on the ad? I think.
It depends on the product, obviously. Yeah, like we all work in. Well, not you, Sergio, kind of, but like me, we work in SaaS, right? So like nobody's gonna buy our enterprise software, right? But like on
Yeah, but
TikTok Shop. But for you,
exactly.
yeah. But
For
if you
e-commerce,
want to
for
buy a
example,
pair of
is
sneakers, yeah, exactly.
yeah.
If you want to buy a pair of sneakers on whatever, some protein powder or whatever, that's different. And I think for ChatGPT ads, it might be the same, right? If I type in, I used the monitor example in the previous recording. Like if I want to look, oh, what is the cheapest, I don't know, 165 hertz or 240 hertz monitor for gaming on Amazon, and it lists me 3, I might click through and then just buy it, obviously. But so I think it depends on product. But what I think would be interesting more for my use case then is just how cheap is the CPM and cost per click,
Right.
because I can then get a new audience and just retarget the hell out of them, right? And then I'll convert them that way. So yeah, for me, it just depends on product. It's actually kind of, I don't think there is a big difference on platforms on this one. Not my immediate thoughts is just it's a new platform, it's a new way for people to get some eyeballs. Like a lot of people already use ChatGPT for search. Perhaps the creative way to think about it is kind of think, okay, people are also looking for an explanation rather than just search of a product. So how can you play with your ads on the explanation part? Do you want to answer them through the ad? Like, hey, I don't know how, in my case, how AI would work in my sales organization. Oh, here is how AI would work in your, So
Yeah.
that I think would be fun to play around with the creative and the
Yeah.
angles.
That's true. I just thought what you were just saying, Sabir, about we've had ads on Google for many decades now, and I see a main difference there with how those will play out in ChatGPT, because obviously it's a one thing that I see is that ads on Google, we've all got used to how they look, and we usually skip them basically, even subconsciously we just ignore them, right? But the difference here I see is that this is a completely different medium, right? It's a completely different way of interacting, and you are actually getting a response that is generated for you in real time, which is different than the usual SERP results that you get in Google. And that is a big factor to consider, because I guess where I'm getting at is, yes, you have control with this new tool in terms of a new way of showing up as a brand, but you still need to cover your bases in terms of making sure that whatever the AI pulls in its organic response is also positive, relevant, to the point that I was making earlier, because otherwise there's going to be a disconnect between what the answer says and what your ad says. And who is the user going to trust? Is it going to trust the answer, or is it going to trust the ad? My take is that it most likely is going to trust the answer, because it's based on actual data coming from the web that is potentially unbiased. In Google, there is a very, very clear disconnection between what is an ad and what is the 10 blue links, and you still have to manually sort of consciously go there and dissect which one is the one that I'm interested in clicking on. Whereas the answer you get from ChatGPT is basically, okay, wow, I just got my answer already, and it says that this brand is better, but then beneath it you have an ad that says something else, and it might just be basically a waste of money if that happens from the advertiser standpoint.
That's where the creative again comes into play. You just have to play around and see. Indeed, do
Yeah.
you want to go Like I can think of 10 different ideas of what I would test. Like, you can't play the angle of, do you not trust this answer? Do you want a real result or something? Or it can be like, this is a great result. This is how to do it actionably, or whatever it may be, right? So I think it just ends up, again, going down to the angle and the creative. But it's a very good point, yeah.
Yeah,
I think
what
it's
I'm
also gonna
saying is,
take.
just
Go
to conclude the point is that we still, yes, we're gonna have ads, and we're gonna have an immediate way to show up in ChatGPT, but I think it's still gonna be very important, if not even more important than it has been so far, to basically AI optimization, AI search is gonna be even more important than it currently is. That's what I'm saying.
Mhm.
Yeah, and it's also, I think, gonna be more a game of prompt optimization. So you're gonna have to adapt the prompting for your ads. So this all makes me think of how we run outbound ads. So basically, we have an AI. He writes the message that is relevant for the prospect, and then we send an email or send whatever to the prospect. But I think it's also going to be the same way for the ChatGPT ads, maybe, or I hope so, because then it's going to be an ad hoc game where it can make semi-relevant messages for the replies that people are getting, and it's not going to be blatantly an ad. So I think there's going to be a little bit of nuance more in there, but it's, again, just speculation. We can't know for sure.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I think it would be interesting indeed to see how much freedom they give you for your ad. Because the basic versions right now is, if you make a carousel ad, you can tick a box that says, the platform itself, Meta or whatever, it can move one image there and one image there. So you give the freedom, right? Perhaps they would give you the freedom to completely rewrite your copy. Or recently on LinkedIn, it recently opened up in Europe. It was already 2 months ago, I think, in the US. You now have the option for personalization. So you can, just like in an email, use first name in an ad, which personally, FYI, I think it's way too invasive. But what you can use is industry or job title. So you can say, hey, are you a sales representative that struggles with X? Or, hey, are working as a marketer in e-commerce or in fashion, whatever it may be. So those are the basic version of personalization, which we know probably works better than none, depending on the use case, but we use it in email, so it will work in ad to some degree too. So I'm very curious to see how much freedom they would give us, and indeed how much freedom we would want to take, because then it comes down kind of to your point again, Sergio. What if it just makes up something crazy that is completely not true or goes against your brand value or whatever? So yeah, interesting.
Yeah, super interesting. And what you just said also made me think like how creative they will get with the actual user experience of the ad, right? Like, are they just gonna be simple banners like we're used to see, or are they gonna just come up with something completely new that actually leverages the technology itself to make it more compelling or anything like that? So it's a big question mark. I'm super curious to see it.
Imagine if it uses him voice as well. I'm driving my car. I'm like, explain me again how the asteroid killed the dinosaurs. And it'll be like, this happened in whatever it may be. I don't remember. 100,000 years ago. And by the way, here's a great book by blah, 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 blah. Something like that. Maybe. Yeah.
But,
that's
but
gonna
it
be interesting.
could also take the YouTube way, and it'd be like, okay, first, before I give you the answer, listen to this ad first, and then ripa. I think then people are gonna stop using it.
Yeah. That is
it
when I
goes that way.
started paying. That's when I started paying for YouTube Premium, by the way.
You can't go back. You can't go back.
Can't go back.
I recently upgraded my account to a family account to give access to some people from my family, and I mean, you get used to it like this, and if you take it back, you never open YouTube again. It's crazy.
Yeah, that's what I say always to people. Like, yeah, it's just ads. I'm like, anytime I go to somebody else's house and they have ads on, I'm like, damn, I'm not used to this anymore.
Over Christmas, somebody had that like 10 hours of fire crackling background thing, and every 20 minutes it would just break and it would be some ad playing. It's like, what are you doing?
It's hilarious.
But yeah, that's exactly, I mean, shows what ChatGPT or OpenAI wants, right? They just want users to upgrade. And actually, that also reminds me, well, I'm thinking back of 10 minutes earlier in our conversation, depending on your product that you want to advertise or the audience you want to reach. Because again, I think e-commerce would probably work better because my parents they use ChatGPT to search for some things or explain some things, but they don't have a pro version. Meanwhile, the users that I guess I want to kind of get professionally as the company I work at B2B, I mean, it's a guess, but I think that at least 80%, maybe more, have a pro subscription. So it's not, I don't perhaps think it might not reach the audience I want to reach anyway, leading to costs going up and whatever. So I think it's also interesting to see when it's out for a couple of months and some reports start getting in, which industries kind of work best with those, free users, which, I mean, kind of perhaps lower tier users, if you want to say that,
Yeah, it's a very good point. Very good point for B2B, definitely.
Does OpenAI doesn't disclose their data usage like Anthropic does?
I'm not
They
sure.
probably don't.
I don't think they do. No. Yeah.
That's a bummer.
Yeah. The final thing that I quickly want to touch on, I saw a clip of Ben Affleck at a Joe Rogan podcast who was discussing, and he was very pessimistic, but he was discussing the financial side because he said like, well, basically when ChatGPT 1 launched, it went on the graph like boom, right? And now it's flattening off in forms of the things you can kind of do with it or that we want to do with it. Yet costs have been going up, right? Because it's more expensive to run the newer models. And also that will decrease actually in time, obviously. But the point was so much money is invested in these companies and the narrative still is always like, oh, it will take over everything. So you will need one salesperson instead of 10. So that's why you invest in our product now and blah, 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 blah. And it's like, yeah, but it's all like propped up so much, the whole VC side of it, where he doesn't necessarily believe in reality it will be able to make up the cost to some degree, especially because there are now more and more players. So it was interesting to me because I thought, yeah, that's one perspective that is, I think it's a good perspective. My counter to that immediately was like, yes, okay, but costs will eventually go down as it does always. Plus, I think he was only looking at the ChatGPT users themselves, meaning like I'm using it to write an email or to write an ebook or whatever it may be, not thinking about the APIs running in the background, right? Because that's the whole thing. In the gold rush, they're selling the shovel, right? And some other tool is buying the shovels to dig for the gold, which would be the money. So I think the question overall is, do you guys think that the narrative is still very much kind of pushed from, oh, AI will take over the world for the sort of money that is propped up? Or what do you guys think? Remain silent. It's a difficult question, or
I also watched that. I had to think a bit because I also watched that clip by Ben Affleck, and I was immediately taken aback by his comments because I think he's looking at it from a very narrow perspective, ignoring as I think you mentioned as well. You were bringing up a little bit, but I think you were mentioning as well that his perspective is a little bit limited. He's not considering basically the amount of innovation that is happening in the background in terms of not what you just see in the latest ChatGPT model, but all the other optimizations that are happening that are not necessarily related to the amount of power and compute that is going to go into these models in the future, which obviously correlates with increased costs. There are a lot of other optimizations that are happening that are algorithmic changes, infrastructure changes that are going to produce very meaningful improvements with minimal cost added to the equation. So I do think that there is definitely an element of truth when it comes to like VC money being like overly emphasized and being given a lot of importance in terms of maybe making the story bigger than it potentially is. But on the flip side, I do think that AI is on a very steady course of improvement that will eventually lead to changing everything. I'm a firm believer in that.
Yeah, same. I think it's very
World
interesting.
dominance.
Word dominance, yeah. I mean,
indeed.
When I was talking about Claude Cowork before Claude Code, I mean, if you look at it, I doubt that Ben Affleck ever used Claude Code. right? Like if you use that, you realize what we're talking about here. It's not just about video generation or getting a response to a query.
Yeah, exactly. For me, it was indeed like the normal user, if you want to say, perspective versus
Yeah.
the techies, which I guess we can kind of qualify under. But that alone, I thought was very interesting to see the different the different angles people look at this, and indeed it was quite a pessimistic POV that he used in that clip and in that interview. But I still thought it was interesting
but
to
I
kind
get
of
that.
touch on.
Yeah, I get this point of view though, because it's more like related to the arts and the media, and they do have a little bit of a different point of view, obviously there. And there was something interesting that they said in the conversation where there was also Matt Damon, I think, there, and he was also saying raising very valid points when it comes to acting and the nature of how cinema is going to be impacted by this technology moving forward, and how a human is going to still be needed to really portray like really really realistic stories that speak to from a human to a human. Basically, it doesn't matter how photorealistic an AI video gets, but the story that a human can tell is still very very important, because it's going to make it much more relatable. So I think that was the angle, I think, from which they were looking at it.
Maybe not directly related to this, but maybe also interesting to know is yesterday I listened to a podcast and they were speaking about the thinking game. So it's a documentary about Demis Hassabis, and
Yes.
he's apparently the guy who invented AI, like a prodigy. And I think it's a super interesting documentary. I'm gonna definitely watch it tonight. About I think this and where it's gonna go, and that this is the only invention worth working on, or the biggest invention ever. So it kind of ties into this.
Yeah, I recommend it. I watched it. Dennis is the founder of DeepMind.
Yeah, Google, right?
Yeah, Google DeepMind. So yeah, he's a very cool guy. I like the way he speaks about AI in a very sort of grounded way, not hyped.
But didn't he like invent it when he was like 6 or something?
He didn't invent it, but he contributed a lot to it when they created the first model that beat the world champion of the chess world champion, basically. Yeah, that was the thing that kickstarted the whole generative AI revolution, basically, with the GPT architecture. Yeah,
There
super
we go.
interesting to watch. Yeah, very good recommendation.
A movie recommendation to end the episode. Look at that. Great.
Yeah.
Now people can spend more time thinking and listening about AI.
Nice.
Well, guys,
Alrighty.
it was a pleasure as always to chat.
Yes,
don't forget to like and subscribe for those who are listening.
Don't forget. Very, very important. Thanks for reminding, Samir.